Today I'm going to show you how to make delicious chicken parmesan, also known as chicken parmigiana. This is an Italian-American classic. It's not fully Italian. It's got the American influence in it. So if you like eggplant parmesan or veal parmesan, this is exactly the same, just done with chicken. And growing up, my mom made the best chicken parm ever. So today I'm sharing the recipe that I grew up eating and loving. Let's get into it. Okay, so first we're gonna do the breadcrumb mixture. That's where all the flavor comes from. And you just want a really nice texture and breading on the outside. So I like to use homemade breadcrumbs. And this is something that my mom taught me to do, is she never used store-bought breadcrumbs for chicken parm. It was always homemade breadcrumbs. And the nice thing about that is when you do it yourself, it gives the really nice crust on the outside and better flavor than regular store-bought panko, in my opinion. So I do recommend using homemade, but you can use store-bought if you'd like. The other nice thing about using your own breadcrumbs is you can use gluten-free bread, you can use whatever bread you have lying around. I like to use like a healthier sprouted bread. That's just something that we like to do, and I really do feel like it makes a difference in the chicken parm itself. So what we're gonna do for flavoring this is we're gonna add some garlic powder. Add a nice teaspoon of that. And then we have, for our herbs, we're gonna use a medley of Italian herbs, dried, 2 teaspoons. As much as I love using fresh herbs, it doesn't really work in the breadcrumb mixture for using fresh. Then we're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon pepper. You could also add like a pinch of red pepper flakes if you like a little bit of heat. Okay, then next, freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano. And I really like using freshly grated cheese in this case because it adds so much flavor and it adds just a really nice cheesiness because the fresh Parmesan melts better than the pre-shredded dried Parmesan. So I like to use fresh, and you're gonna use a 1/2 cup of cheese. I like to have a heaping 1/2 cup of cheese. And there's only so many ways you can make chicken parm, but I think when you use quality ingredients, it really sets it apart from other recipes. And we're gonna just stir this together. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside, and now we're gonna deal with the chicken. What I like to do is all the stuff that's for the dredging of the chicken ready and set aside. So I have my flour in a bowl here. And then I have my egg mixture here. So these are already ready to go. And I like to do that before I get into the raw meat situation because it can get a little messy. You wanna make sure everything's kind of done and ready for the chicken. So with the chicken, one of the things that my mom taught me to do was to first tenderize it before you bread it. And this is because chicken breast can be a little bit dry and sometimes can be tough. So you wanna break down those muscle fibers by pounding it out. So what I'm gonna do is I have just a layer of parchment paper. You can also do plastic wrap or a Ziploc bag. And you're just gonna put the chicken in between the layers. And if you have a meat hammer, great. I have a rolling pin. We use what we got. And we're just gonna pound the heck out of this thing. Like this. And this is why the parchment paper is there, so that we're not smacking meat and it's splattering everywhere. This just kind of keeps everything contained. Okay, I think we've beaten it enough. Okay, so that looks good. And again, that's gonna make the chicken breast really tender. Whenever my mom served chicken parm, you just needed a fork to cut it. That's how tender the chicken breast is. And that's not always the case with chicken breast. It can be pretty tough. So when making chicken parm, you always take the chicken breasts and you cut them in half to have cutlets. So if you go to the store and you see chicken breast or chicken cutlets, just know that the chicken cutlets are just halved chicken breasts. But the chicken breasts themselves are a little too thick for chicken parm. And they're really big too. So just cutting them in half right down lengthwise is gonna give the perfect size for individual pieces. Okay, so now we're gonna clean this up and get ready for breading the chicken. So we've tenderized the chicken and cut the breasts into cutlets. Now it's time to bread the chicken. So what I like to do is set up the bowls. I have the flour, the breadcrumbs, and the egg mixture, and just kind of set it up in a little assembly line and grab one of your chicken cutlets, dip it in the flour. So this is gonna coat the outside of the chicken cutlet. Then you wanna dip it in the egg mixture. I used to always get the order of everything confused when I was younger. It's a little confusing, but it's flour first, then egg, and then you go into the breadcrumb mixture. The egg is really gonna help that breadcrumb mixture stick. And you just kind of take it and flip it a few times. Sometimes not every area is perfectly coated in the first dip. And then there you go. So I have a pan that I'll just kind of lay all the finished breaded chicken cutlets there. So for the flour, you can use really any flour you like. If you're gluten intolerant, you can, like I said earlier, you can do gluten-free breadcrumbs, and you could do a gluten-free flour blend, or rice flour could work as well. And I actually like to just make it a little bit healthier, and I use a whole wheat pastry flour. And whenever I use that, it works just the same as all-purpose in a lot of recipes. So I like to use it just to get a little bit more healthy ingredients in there. But you can use really any flour you like. And I always used my hands doing this process, but I've come to appreciate these little tongs. It helps the process be a lot less messy, because it would just get all caked on my hands. So if you have these in your kitchen, I would use them for this process, because it really does help keep the mess to a minimum. Okay, so we're done with breading the chicken. Now we're going to brown these in a pan before we bake them in the oven. Before we brown the chicken, I wanna first prep my pan. So I have it on a medium heat right now, and I can feel that the heat is definitely penetrating through the pan at this point. Then I wanna add my oil. This helps the oil kind of stay on top of the pan, and this is going to help the chicken not stick. So we're gonna put a few tablespoons of oil. This is gonna help brown the chicken, and we'll just get that evenly coating the pan. We want it to sizzle when we put the chicken cutlets in. And we're gonna take our breaded chicken, put it in the pan. My pan could be a little hotter, but it's fine. And you wanna brown the chicken breast for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side, just until it's perfectly golden. Okay, so these chicken breasts are done, and we're gonna place them in a pan. And we're going to re-season our pan for the next batch that we're gonna do. After frying the chicken in the pan, if you notice that there's a lot of oil on the chicken, you can just use some paper towels to kind of dab up that extra oil. You can even lay them on paper towels, but I didn't use that much oil, so mine actually look pretty good. But typically, if there's a lot of olive oil in the pan, I would definitely use some paper towels to kind of dry up, because it will make the dish a lot heavier having all that oil in the dish. Now that we've browned the chicken, we can layer it with some cheese and sauce and bake it in the oven. Now we're going to top the chicken cutlets with fresh slices of mozzarella cheese. And I like to use fresh and not the pre-shredded, because it has that fresh creaminess and it melts beautifully. And this is the way that my mom taught me to layer it. So typically you'd probably see the sauce going on first and then the cheese. But I think that the mozzarella kind of helps preserve the crust of the chicken before you put the sauce on, because the sauce will soften the crust a little bit. Then we're gonna do a nice spoonful, very generous spoonful of sauce, but we're not gonna drown the cutlets in sauce because, again, we still wanna preserve that nice crust that we've created with all that delicious Parmesan flavor. So we're just gonna take some nice marinara. You can use your homemade sauce. We have lots of recipes on our website, San Marzano tomato sauce, or you could use a spicy arrabbiata sauce for a little bit of a kick, or your favorite store-bought sauce to save some time. Now we're gonna finish with some freshly grated Parmesan. So now we're gonna bake the chicken parm in the oven at 425 degrees for 14 minutes uncovered. Okay, so the chicken parm is done, and we broiled it on high for the last minute just to brown the cheese perfectly on top. Okay, so we're gonna have Drew taste the chicken parm. Are you excited?
So excited. This looks amazing.
Drew loves chicken parm.
I gotta cut a little bit of this cheese off, make sure we get enough cheese on there.
Oh, and Drew likes more sauce than what's on here, and that's totally fine. You can serve this with extra sauce. I just think that serving it with less sauce really helps, again, keep that crusty, breaded chicken.
Delicious.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is so good. Wow.
You taste the Parmesan and the...
Yeah, you just get everything together, works perfectly. This just reminds me of Sunday dinners.
Mm-hmm. When Drew and I met, we would always do Sunday dinners with my family, and that's when my mom would just make a delicious meal of lasagnas, chicken parm. They were always our favorite dinners to have with family.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm gonna try it too. I'm gonna get some of this crusty chicken on the side. You really taste the Parmesan, which is obviously the focal point of any chicken parm or eggplant parm. And that's just one of the first things that I taste is that delicious Parmesan breading. And it's so good. And the chicken is so tender. And it is all because we tenderized the heck out of that chicken by whacking it with the little roller. So
with the roller.
Don't ever skip that. If you've never tenderized the chicken, seriously, don't skip it because it makes such a difference. And there you have it. That's how you make my family's version of chicken Parmesan. I remember requesting this dish growing up. My mom would always make us a birthday dinner and would just ask what we wanted for that meal. And I would always request this chicken Parmesan. So it's a huge childhood favorite of mine, and I hope you guys love it as much as my family does. And you can find the recipe link in our description of this video and on our website at asimplepalate.com. We'll catch you on the next recipe. Drew and I are laughing because all of my pot holders have disappeared, and I have my mom's really pretty ones from the thrift store, probably. So.